Councilmember Kovar.
Here.
Councilmember DeBala.
Here.
Councilmember Costick.
Here.
Councilmember Siemens.
Present.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Searcy.
Here.
All right, good evening, everyone. Tonight, regarding our agenda, we had one item that we took off and will be rescheduled, I think tentatively to next week, which was a resolution approving a letter to the Maryland Healthcare Commission expressing support for Adventist Healthcare's request for modification of the certificate of need. We got some feedback from the Healthcare Commission and want to incorporate that into our letter before we send it off to them. So we will be working on that and hopefully come back next week to council on that. Otherwise, our agenda this evening remains the same. Looking forward, next week we'll have a proclamation for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Our voting session will be the second reading ordinance on our FY 2023 tax rate, stormwater managed budget, and our FY 2023 budget. We'll have a single reading ordinance next week authorizing city manager to use $250,000 from the multifamily housing rehabilitation project in ARPA to support the renovation of Hillwood Manor Apartments. And tentatively, we have the resolution to approve a letter to the Maryland Healthcare Commission I just mentioned. Then on Wednesday, May 25th, for the record, we have Foster Parent Awareness a Month proclamation. Our voting session tentatively is a resolution regarding the report of the Sustainable Banking and Investments Task Force and a single reading ordinance authorizing a contract for architectural services for the community center renovation project. Our work sessions on the 25th included a procurement item on closed captioning and other city TV equipment and auditing services in preparation of the annual comprehensive financial report. Then our next meeting is Wednesday, June 1st. We will have a proclamation of National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Don't forget to wear orange on June 1st, and we'll also have a proclamation of Chesapeake Bay Awareness Week. We'll have a presentation that night from the Grants Review Committee for their FY23 Community Quality of Life Grant Award recommendations. And our voting session will be on the procurement items for the closed captioning and other city TV equipment, and for the auditing services for the preparation of the annual comprehensive financial report. This evening, we have two items. For the record, two proclamations. The first is for Myalgic Encephalitis Awareness Day. ME, whereas ME, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, is a disabling multi-system neuroimmune disease characterized by persistent and profound fatigue exhaustion, post-exertional relapse, sleep disturbances, unrefreshing sleep, cognitive impairment, pain, headaches, cardiac, and other symptoms that leave many ME patients homebound or bedridden for years or a lifetime, and as many as 75% unable to work or go to school. And whereas because of stigma and lack of attention by the government and the research and medical communities, patients struggle to access appropriate medical care and rarely recover due to a lack of treatments, as there is no diagnostic test or FDA-approved treatment, resulting in loss of hope and thus higher rates of suicide. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has continued, it's become clear that some people who have had COVID-19 might not recover right away. Instead, they develop a longer-lasting illness called post-COVID conditions. Many of the symptoms people with post-COVID conditions report include severe fatigue, headaches, brain fog, sleeping difficulties, anxiety, or depression. The Centers for Disease Control indicates that learning about the long-term effects of COVID-19 can help researchers understand ME, and what we know about ME may help people with long COVID. And whereas awareness of ME should lead to increased funding for research and result in better diagnosis and treatment, therefore, I, Kate Stewart, Mayor of the City of Tacoma Park, do hereby proclaim the date May 12, 2022 as ME Awareness Day in order to help spread awareness of the disease, the need for research and appropriate medical care, and to support individuals and their families living with ME. The next oops, I am not connected to the internet. I can't get the next proclamation. And I don't have a Yeah, sorry. For some reason, my computer's not connecting to the internet. Thank you, Councilwoman Costick. All right. Bike to Work Day, Friday, May 20th. Whereas bicycle commuting is an effective means to improve air quality, reduce traffic congestion, and conserve energy. And whereas bicycle commuting benefits both employees and employers through increased employee health and fitness, less commuting time, and reduced parking costs. And whereas the low cost of bicycle commuting saves money otherwise spent on fuel, private vehicle maintenance, and parking. And whereas the City of Tacoma Park is implementing bikeway improvements throughout the city to encourage and facilitate safe and convenient traveling by bicycle. And whereas Capital Bike Share regional bike sharing system continues to expand with over 600 stations in Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Virginia. And whereas the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments promotes bicycling and organizes Bike to Work Day along with Washington Area Bicyclists Association. And whereas Tacoma Park Housing and Community Development staff coordinate 2 Bike to Work Day pit stops in the city in partnership with local businesses. And whereas the week of May 16th and 22nd is National Bike to Work Week, which promotes bicycling as a viable means of transportation to and from work. Now, therefore, I, Kate Stewart, Mayor of the City of Tacoma Park, Maryland, on behalf of the Council and residents, hereby proclaim Friday, May 20th, 2022 as Bike to Work Day, and encourage all residents and local employees to register to Bike to Work by visiting www.biketoworkmetrodc.org. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Costa. Did you fix it?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Next, we have public comments. First are public comments on voting items, and we begin here in the auditorium. Our voting items this evening is the second reading ordinance approving our FY 2022 budget amendment number 4. Anyone have any public comments here on that? Seeing none, any public comments on the first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2023 tax rate? Seeing none, we have then a first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2023 stormwater management budget. We have first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2023 budget. And a single reading ordinance approving the purchase of a vehicle for the police special assignment team. All right. Those are all the voting items. Any other public comments here in the auditorium this evening? Okay, seeing none, I believe there was one person who signed up for public comments online, and that's Mr. Eubner, and we'll turn to him now.
Good evening. Paul Hubner, Ward 3. Approving the proposed budget would be the acquiescence on the part of the council to the staff's failure to balance the budget. Approving the current tax rate is still a tax increase for most homeowners. Since 2015, this mayor and most on this council, along with the former city manager, have presided over budgets that have never achieved the constant yield. The state and county are increasing services while touting budget surpluses with no tax increases. Those council members who have stated that keeping the rate constant was their goal need to correct that position. Even the current tax rate will increase property taxes with the current inflated assessments. Presented as a maintenance of effort budget, the city again increases staff positions as well as staff compensation and benefits. Another year of tax increases and no cuts in expenditures. With no expenditure cuts, there will be some $5 million or more of a projected budget deficit next year, along with near certain tax increases. The time to make cuts is now. Let's not forget that this year the city has benefited from $17 million of federal ARPA funds, with city staff redirecting over $6 million of these funds to cover city cost overruns on bungled capital projects like the library and police station renovation. I'll also note that while this year's budget includes $250,000 for stormwater mitigation, acknowledged by council as part of their climate crisis initiative, the city will spend 5 times that amount to renovate the police station, along with another $500,000 to purchase new luxury police SUVs. Most distressing is the way the council has veered away from its own priorities. On May 12, 2021, the council voted to adopt the FY22 budget. On page 2 of that document is the council's commitment to reviewing and reforming the city's approach to public safety by establishing the Public Safety Task Force to advise and make recommendations for reform of the city's public safety policies and procedures to ensure racial justice with, quote, changes to certain divisions or units within the police department or other city departments, such as removal of the K-9 unit, end quote. I remind you that the task force recommended the removal of the mental health unit from the police department, but the current renovation plan shows that it is within the police department. The task force also recommended the elimination of the K-9 unit, yet the council still raises this issue as if it was not discussed or settled. The elimination of the K-9 unit was considered and approved by vote last year. I was a bit buoyed, however, by assertions from council members Kovar and Costick asserting a need for a new approach to budgeting with the residents more involved, where the next budget will begin to reflect the needs and desires of the residents and not be so absolutely focused on funding the city bureaucracy. I applaud that commitment of some council members and hope for this change in direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hubner. Those are all the public comments this evening. Do I have any comments from city council members? I'm not seeing any. Councilmember Kovar.
Thank you. Pardon me. Three things I wanted to mention. One, I had let people know about the meeting that took place this past Monday evening, where the development company EYA made a presentation regarding their proposed apartment building in the parking lot and surrounding area of the Tacoma Metro Station. And I was pleased to see that dozens of Tacoma Park residents participated in that meeting. Councilmember DeBala also sat in, which was great. A lot of useful information came from that, and I was planning to send a follow-up note to EYA to ask them to clarify a number of points and to take into consideration a number of recommendations that people had. And so I'll plan on doing that if people want to get in touch with me and let me know of their concerns. Certainly happy to consider including them, and we'll go from there depending on what kind of response we get. And I'm certainly happy to discuss with people separately some of the information that was presented at that meeting. Secondly, I've mentioned this previously, and maybe the staff could look into it. The newsletter just doesn't seem to arrive via the U.S. mail on time. The one that came to my house came yesterday, and a lot of times, as everybody knows, I think there are events that are listed in there that people may miss as a result of that. And I understand it's online, and I've tried to remember, sometimes done it, to circulate a link to that so that people can see it online, but I think a lot of people do rely on being able to get the hard copy and reading it in that fashion. So it seems like the lateness began more or less around the time when there were really problems with the Postal Service, and it may be that just hasn't rebounded yet. But one way or the other, either through the Postal Service, and I'd be happy to assist on that, or by changing the timing for the preparation of the newsletter, we ought to have take some steps to address this so that people do receive it on time or as close to that as we can. And then the one other thing is, I noticed a number of cities are doing this around the country, and I don't know whether my colleagues would be interested. If they are, they can contact me separately, but communities have been honoring in various ways the deaths of those who passed in their communities as a result of COVID. I think it's something that we might want to consider. We've been fortunate that the numbers aren't unduly high here, and I know there have been ceremonies for certain individuals who have died as a result of that, but I think it could be useful to take a step back and do that for the group as a whole. So it's something I'd ask my colleagues to think about and we can talk about later. Thank you.
Councilman Searcy?
Good evening, everyone. Couple of quick reminders. Don't forget about the Crossroads Farmers Market. That is on Wednesdays. Also, the Tacoma Langley Crossroads is having the Summer Mercado, and that is on Saturday, June the 25th from 1 until 6 p.m. It'll be super fun. It's at Ann Street between University Boulevard and Hammond, and there's always food and music and crafts, so definitely want to encourage people to come out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
I think Councilmember DeBala was before me.
No, it comes up when you put, Councilman DeBala can go
Got it.
first.
Thank you. So I just have a couple of announcements. Speaking of the Chesapeake Bay Awareness Week, the Chesapeake Bay Committee of the Regional Council of Governments is meeting this Friday. So it'll be the first hybrid, some of us in-person meeting that I'll be going to down at COG. So that'll be interesting. And just to remind everybody that the Friends of the Library book sale is this Saturday, 10 to 2. Lots of great books outside under the trees. Can't beat it. Thanks a lot.
Councilmember Smith, would you like to go now? No. Thank you. Number of comments. I just want to thank the Tacoma Stormwater Solutions Group for the webinar they put on yesterday. It was great overview. Well, not great, I guess, because the news isn't very good regarding stormwater. But I thank them for all their work they're doing. I thank our Director of Public Works, Ms. Braithwaite, for attending as well, and look forward to their next webinar, which is going to be on a proposal for some solutions. In addition, we continued working with students at the University of Maryland, and they looked at longitudinal employee household data analysis and did a little project for the city staff on that, and I was able to sit in on that as well yesterday. It was very helpful information, just thinking about where people live and work in the area. The third item I want to raise is that I think, as many people know, the Presbyterian Church on Tulip has been helping out with migrants who have been sent here from Texas. Governor Abbott has started in early April putting people who are seeking asylum in this country on buses and sending them to this area. Members of the Presbyterian Church and a number of other nonprofits have been working to help people get to other destinations or prepare for their asylum hearings. So if you have time or room in your house, they do need assistance. Delegate Charkoudian and I have been working with folks at the county to explore where a more permanent situation. So hopefully that will happen soon. And want to mention, I think, people mentioned a couple of events. Tacoma Park Middle School students, some of them are putting on a Holly event at Tacoma Park Middle School from 2 to 5 on Saturday. People would like to enjoy that. There is also, the Village is having their spring fling at the VFW from 2 to 5 as well on Saturday afternoon. So there's a lot going on Saturday in the community. Let's hope for good weather. Those are all the comments I have this evening. I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Just one recognition. Starting today, this is the National Law Enforcement Week, as well as the Public Safety Telecommunications Week. And just want to honor and recognize the sacrifice that our men and women make each and every day that they come into work to serve and protect this community, the dedication that they provide to this community and to their profession. This week we honor those who lost their life in the line of duty, as well as we continue to celebrate those who continue to serve and want to serve this great profession for our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Now we'll move into our voting items. The first voting item is the second reading ordinance approving FY 2022 budget amendment number 4. I do not believe there were any changes from the first ordinance. Am I correct? Okay, then I will ask for someone to move the second reading ordinance approving FY 2022 budget amendment number 4. Councilman Costick moved. Do I have a second? Councilwoman DeBala. Since this is, do I have any comments or questions on this? Seeing none, since this is the second reading, I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
Councilmember Kovar,
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala,
Yes.
Councilmember Costick,
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy,
Aye.
All right.
Mayor Stewart?
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, I need to vote too. Aye. Next, we have the first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2023 tax rate. The information is up on the city website. The tax rate that is being established by this ordinance is the same tax rate as last year. Do I have someone who would like to, oh, sorry, City Manager, did you have anything you wanted to say? Okay. Would someone like to move the ordinance adopting the FY 2023 tax rate? Councilman DeBala moved. Do I have a second? Councilman Costick, any questions or comments? Councilmember Costick, then Kovar.
Thank you. I just have a quick question/comment. As I was looking at this one, and let me make sure it is actually this one and not the next one. It is this one. I was noticing the vacant property tax amount, and I know we've talked in the past about the idea of looking at vacant properties. I didn't really think it through earlier in this process because for some reason I was thinking that we hadn't yet designated that category for property tax. But I just want to flag that as something I'd love to get some input as we look towards the future, is some input from staff on in terms of how we might structure that and if we could increase the rate on vacant property as a way to encourage people who have long-standing vacant properties that are not being developed and not being moved forward to become housing, to be able to incentivize that and address our tax needs as well. Thank you.
Sorry, Councilmember Kovar.
Thank you. I just want to say briefly, I appreciate the successful efforts by the mayor and my colleagues to reduce the expenditures in the budget so that we got down to a property tax rate that's the same as for the coming years as we had in this year. I had expressed my concern and proposed several ways of reducing it further. Those didn't happen, and I understand that. My concern is based primarily on the reality that, and I think Mr. Huebner mentioned this as well, that the county tax rate is also staying the same. So for those whose assessments have gone up considerably in the recent reassessments, over time, it's hundreds and hundreds of, potentially hundreds and hundreds of additional dollars in expenditures. And, you know, I understand that we have the credits available for those who are least well off, and that's something, but I continue to have concern about our not being able to get it somewhat below, at least somewhat below the existing level. So I'm planning to vote no on this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman DeBala.
Thank you. I agree with, I support Councilmember Costick's comments on the vacant buildings tax rate. And I was going to mention looking to the commercial tax rate for next year also. And I found some materials from, I think it was 3 years ago when we did the personal property tax. We also looked into what the different breakouts would be on different levels of commercial property and how you could cut it in different ways or not cut it in different ways. That might be useful for looking at it again, and I can get that to you. I understand that the tax rate will affect different families in different ways. Remind people that we are working on trying to come up with a scheme for supplementing the current property tax credits that exist. There are still plenty of folks out there that don't get what you're qualified for. So that's the first step, is to make sure you're not missing something. And then also, as much as I would love to see lower taxes, who wouldn't, I also don't want to set us up for failure in the coming years fiscally. And so I will be voting to support this tax rate. Thank you.
Great. I just had a quick question on the cover sheet. We say the adopted tax rate is higher than the constant yield and represents an increase in real property tax revenue of $539,424. The adopted tax rate will result in an increase in property tax revenues in the amount of $508,545 over the adopted amount. Why aren't those two numbers the same? The 539 and the 508. We can figure it out next week, but it was just the cover sheet that was posted this afternoon. So if we could just answer that question by second reading, that would just be helpful. Because I will note that our increase, it says the increase is 3.65, and I think there's been some folks saying, oh, we're increasing taxes over constant yield by more than inflation. In fact, that's not what we're doing. So I just want to make sure we have accurate numbers, because there's been questions raised on that. But we can do that next week. Any other questions? And I'd just like to thank Councilwoman DeBala for her work as we and continue to work with her as we look at targeted tax credits, because I do agree with her that looking at that is the appropriate way to address some of the issues with the increasing assessments, and I will be voting for this tax rate this year. So with that, do I have a motion to, someone want to move this? Oh, you did that. You're right. We're in questions. All right, then we're good. We're voting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No?
No.
I have 2 noes and 5 ayes. Next, we will vote to convene as the Stormwater Management Board. Would someone like to move a motion to be the Stormwater Management Board?
So moved.
Councilwoman Searcy moved. Do I have a second? Councilwoman Costick, second. All those in favor of going into the Stormwater Management Board, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Nope. All right. We are the Stormwater Management Board. And I think before we get to the first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2023 Stormwater Management Budget, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager, because we're going to talk a little bit more, I think, about the stormwater budget this before getting into the vote. Nope, right? Is that why Director Braithwaite's here? Yes.
Good evening. I think you all got a 2-page paper I provided on the little bit of background information on stormwater. As I understand it, we didn't get to delve into it deeply enough during the budget hearing process, so I'm happy to provide kind of a high-level overview and answer any questions anybody might have. Just by way of general information, the FY23 proposed stormwater budget has an expenditure of $734,226. That's broken out in 4 main categories: personnel, which represents about 16% of the cost at $118,000. Repairs and maintenance represents about a quarter of the budget at $180,000. Similarly, our services and charges. And lastly, capital projects, which for FY23 is proposed at $250,000, or 34% of that budget. I just wanted to add some specifics about what are in each of those categories. As I believe we've mentioned previously, we have one main capital project planned for FY23, and that's the Tacoma Ranch stream restoration. That'll be addressing some serious erosion at the outfall below 4th and Poplar Avenue at the outfall of the Tacoma branch. So that's been a long-standing project that we're very excited to get going. And the environmental degradation there has been, as I mentioned, extreme, and so this project will do a significant amount to restore that area and reduce the ongoing erosion that's taking place there. By way of the repairs and maintenance, we've got several major projects that are planned. There's going to be a project at the Maple Avenue outfall, what we call Brashear's Run, at the foot of Maple Avenue and Sligo Creek Parkway. If you've been by there lately, there's a big section of the concrete base of the outfall that had floated away in past storms, so we'll be reestablishing with a more natural outfall setting that particular location. And this project is being done in collaboration with Park and Planning that has to give us a permit for that, review the drawings, and approve what we've got planned. We'll be working within a list of 8 vendors that Park and Planning has previously approved, so we'll be going out to bid for proposals for that project and hope to get that underway. That is a project that is limited in terms of the time of year it can be done. During spawning season, we're not allowed to work in the stream, so we'll be doing that outside of that time frame, which is generally March to June. We also are hoping to do a second phase of a project on Poplar Avenue near Elm. We hope to begin that project this year. It's one of the first times we've done a project. It's city infrastructure, failed inlets and failed storm drain pipe at Poplar and Elm Avenue that affects primarily 3 properties, as well as a 4th. And so we have been going through the process of getting construction easement agreements, which has taken quite some time. It's very difficult to work on private property. Understandably, people have concerns about the nature of the work and the impact to their properties. So we're hoping to get that started this summer. That will address the defective pipe and restore inlets and grading to reduce flooding and the impact of stormwater in those particular properties. And then the second phase of the project that we hope to get underway in '23 will be more street side. Similar to what we did on Sycamore Avenue, we're going to be enhancing the inlets to provide for greater capacity of the water flow to allow it to get off the street and into the storm drain system and avoid going onto private property. So we'll be doing inlets adjustment, we'll be raising the sidewalks, and we'll be slightly raising the curb line and driveway elevations to, again, keep the water in the street and avoid the impacts to private property. We've got some planned repairs to stormwater pipe sections at Willow Avenue and Valley View. These, again, are sections that we identified through our video inspection work in past years. And then there'll be miscellaneous inlet repairs that we'll deal with as they come up. The services and charges, these are things that are partially required by by the state mandates for our stormwater management. So we do have to do annually outfall testing of all our dry weather outfalls. We have to have an illicit discharge detection program where we try to identify sources of pollution. We do a video inspection and cleaning of 1/5 of the storm drain system each year, so that program comes out of this services and charges budget. And then we have supplemental engineering support to help us with construction inspection, design development, and as-builts of final projects. And then lastly, we have contract maintenance for our bioretention facilities. While we do have in-house staff that deal with all our vegetated maintenance areas, the bioretention facilities and some of the streetscapes we'd like to have on a more frequent cycle than our in-house staff can manage. So we have had in place for several years a contract process where 6 times a year our bioretention facilities get maintained by an outside firm. So we'll be continuing that work. So that's kind of a high-level overview of the '23 budget. In addition to all that capital projects and services and charges and repairs, the city engineer also oversees any permit applications that come in, and those are related to construction projects. For single-family homes, it's those that affect more than 5,000 square feet of disturbance, but for any commercial, institutional, or industrial permit, regardless of size, they have to go through our stormwater permitting process. So that includes concept design, plan review, and then final permitting with the associated reviews and fees. I wanted to speak just briefly about what we have been able to accomplish this year in FY22. We had quite a bit of carryover money from FY21. The impact of the pandemic really slowed down some of our projects. So we were able to get quite a bit done this year that we feel quite happy about. There was a repair to 4th Avenue where we had a long-standing wet road situation, so we extended under drain and repaired that situation there, and pleased to say it's worked quite well and the roadway is dry. We had a pipe repair at Garland and Flower Avenue, again a long-standing seepage issue with water showing up on the street and causing icing and moss and different times of the year that has now been taken care of. We did a major pipe repair project that affected private property on Garland Avenue near Central, so we had to basically replace collapsed inlets and pipes through a section of people's private property. Pipe went under the road and then out to the outfall towards Long Branch. So that was a fairly intense project that we were able to complete and put that back together. As I mentioned, we did a major project on Sycamore Avenue to address some of the impacts from flooding associated with high flash flood volumes of rain, where we added inlets and added capacity and raised sidewalks, driveway aprons, and curbs to help keep the water in the road and off private property. And as I mentioned, we have the project on Poplar Avenue at Elm that we're hoping to get started this summer. Our services and charges, very much similar to what I mentioned for '23, outfall testing, which is currently underway. Our pipe inspection and cleaning is going to begin in mid-May. And then we did quite a few capital projects in this fiscal year, a big portion of which was the purchase of the EV sweeper, which we can't get soon enough. It's apparently on a very slow boat from where it's coming from to here, so we're hoping it arrives later this summer. We installed a new bioretention facility at the Grant Avenue and Holly Avenue. We installed a permeable paver and treatment facility at the dead end of Elson Place, again, right on the banks of Sligo Creek Parkway, so it'll have significant impact to reduce sediment and erosion and filter water in that location. And we are hoping to get started very soon on a project on Cockerell Avenue, which actually affects Cockerell and Spring. There's currently a system of inlets and pipes that go under people's houses and backyards, and there's been a source of flooding, and so we're going to relocate that pipe to be in the right-of-way, so we take that problem out of people's backyards, put it in the right-of-way, and add a significant amount of capacity. We're going to be adding 800 linear feet of pipe and additional inlets, and changing the location of where that stormwater, which is currently coming from one portion of the city. Right now it comes down from Spring Park and Poplar into Spring and outfalls at the top of Circle Woods. So now we'll be bringing that half of that water down Cockerell Avenue and enter it into Circle Woods through the city's right-of-way there and along a natural flood bank. So we're excited about that project and hope to get that going very soon. And then lastly, in another kind of first of its kind, we are partnering with Park and Planning. There was a playground renovation that was planned at Hillwood Manor, and we had spoken for quite some time, and Councilmember Searcy has been sort of an essential piece of keeping that communication going and the heat on Park and Planning. So the playground renovation is to start this summer, and the precursor to that is the installation of a fairly significant stormwater treatment facility that will be along the roadside there. So Park and Planning did the design. The city agreed to contribute a portion of funding, $55,000, towards the construction of that project, which costs probably 3 or 4 times that. Park and Planning is covering the rest of the cost, and the agreement is for the city to maintain that and claim the treatment credits associated with that project. So very happy to work with Park and Planning on that. It's really been a good, a good partnership where we each can offer what we have and certainly provide a significant improvement to the stormwater runoff in that neighborhood, and we're looking forward to the playground renovation. The last thing I wanted to mention, I sent a email out to council members, I believe last week, so we've finally gotten the stormwater utility fee credit program established and published and announced. On the city's stormwater management page, we have the guidance documents and background material about the measures that are included for consideration for credit, as well as the fillable application that people can use. I just wanted to speak a bit about what that program entails. As you all know quite well, the city changed the structure of the utility fee for single-family properties for the stormwater management fee, implemented in FY22. That was a long process that we started in fiscal year 18 and continue to work on until we finally achieved that new fee structure. Prior to that, all single-family properties were billed a flat fee. Every single-family property was billed the same regardless of the amount of impervious surface it had. As a result of the change in fee structure, now properties are billed based on their actual impervious area. Commercial and institutional and industrial properties have always been billed based on their actual impervious area since the establishment of our utility fee. It was just the single-family properties that had not. So this was seen as a much more equitable way of distributing the costs and generating the revenue needed for our stormwater program. One of the things that council made clear in the year where they established and approved that new fee was that in addition to the process of people being able to request corrections and make sure the information that we were basing their fee on was right, that we also wanted to have a program to establish those property owners that had implemented stormwater treatment measures on their properties to be able to receive credit for that, for the treatment that they provide. And so this program will now enable people to apply to receive credit for those measures that they've taken on those properties. And those include the measures that we consider to be best management practice for stormwater treatment and are commonly implemented on single-family or residential properties. Those include rain gardens and vegetated swales, bioretention facilities, dry wells, permeable pavement, and green roofs. In addition, because of the interest of continuing to encourage tree planting, we've added a measure for tree planting where people can get credit as a result of planting a minimum of 2 trees. Each of these measures will qualify for either 1 or 3 years of credit. The property owner will be expected to maintain and keep up their stormwater treatment facility in good working order. And then we have a process where they can reapply, get recertified for credit, so it can go ongoing. For most of those, it's every 3 years. And so all that information, as I mentioned, is available on the city's stormwater management page. We're preparing an article for the June newsletter where that'll be, we'll describe the same information for the public. And of course, as always, we're available to take any calls or answer any questions for folks that may have them. We will be updating our stormwater management page with the latest LIDAR impervious area layer. The county, as you all know, every 3 years has that data revised, and so our existing maps are based on 2018 data, so now we'll have the 2021 data that's published now. So we will be posting that map, which we currently have. The prior map, it for the most part remains the same, but there are some additional levels of detail. And for those property owners that had let us know about issues that they had or concerns with the county's mapping, we were able to provide property survey plat maps that residents of our city had and pass them along to the county to make corrections on the county map. So that has been underway, and the county has made those changes, and that's all included in the new map that we'll be posting shortly. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Director Braithwaite. Any quick questions for Director Braithwaite? Councilmember Smith?
Ms. Braithwaite, thank you so much for that presentation. Obviously, you're doing a lot of great work in the city. Is there an end date? I mean, we have all these capital improvement projects. Do you think in the next 5, 10, 15 years we will have completed most of these projects in a city that's only 2.4 square miles? Or will this go on for the next 20, 50 plus years?
I think in regard to stormwater management in particular, because a lot of our infrastructure was original to the city, we inherited it from prior administrations. More recently, WSSC was the owner of our infrastructure. So we have 100-year-old pipes, very lovely, hand-built trenches and whatnot. All that will require ongoing maintenance. So I don't think there'll ever be a time where we don't need to do stormwater management work, either to shore up the existing system or, more importantly, unfortunately, as a result of climate change, continue to provide capacity, stormwater treatment, and improvements to try to protect private property as well as improve water quality. So there's a great number of projects that we have. We have a 5-year CIP, so we've kind of laid out our vision for the next 5 years. But I would fully anticipate the list of projects continuing at that or greater rate as we continue to deal with our aging system and identify new problems.
Thank you for all your work.
Councilman Costick?
I just wanted to say thank you. It's exciting to hear particularly about some of the projects in Ward 3 that have been waited for a very long time. So very excited to hear that moving forward. Thank you.
Yep. In regard to the Cockrell project, we will have a page on the city's website with the design plans for that. So as residents have questions, they can look to that, and then of course also contact us for the details.
Councilman DeBala?
Yes, thank you. So 2 questions on 2 different parts of the program. So speaking of climate and the state, the new state law revising some of the design standards. So from the city point of view, particularly from the budget point of view, how does that change in design standards that we anticipate? How's that going to trickle out over the next few years?
Sure. Well, those design standards you're referring to in terms of stormwater management typically impact the stormwater permit process. So anyone who's doing a construction project for a single-family home, which is going to disturb more than 5,000 square feet, they're going to have to meet a higher standard of stormwater treatment, both for water quality as well as capacity. So we anticipate the impact of that will be on development primarily and construction projects. The other piece of what may change as the state evolves, we have our current discharge permit from the Clean Water Act through 2025. So before too long, the state, in fact, they've already started considering what the next round of permit requirements will be. So there are certain standards that we have to meet in order to be in good standing with our permit. So there may be changes that the state establishes in regard to treatment levels or type of public outreach or type of education, all kinds of things that may come into place. So as once that permit starts to get to the point where we need to, it needs to be reissued, we'll have a new set of criteria that we'll need to meet, which is likely to include pollution reduction measures as well as continued treatment, similar to what we're doing now.
Okay. And if I recall, you said we're on target and then some to meet the permit that we have now. But
Yep.
as you just said, new permit starting in 2025, new goalposts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
okay.
fully anticipate, and so we're continuing our project at the same rate, assuming that the requirements will be raised, and so we're starting now, as we did previously, to work towards higher requirements. But yeah, our annual NPDES report is on the city's website, and as it stands currently, we have just exceeded the requirement for providing treatment for 20% of the impervious area in the city based on our stormwater management measures, as well as our other additional measures of tree planting, street sweeping, the video pipe inspection, the stream restoration. So all those things add towards the credit that we get for providing treatment of stormwater.
Yeah, thanks. The second area that I wanted to ask about, thank you for the stormwater fee credit program, because I was one of the people pushing for it. How has the response been so far, if at all? At my end, all I've heard is people who were interested being a little confused about the April 30th. Were they too late to apply?
Sure,
Were they
sure.
not good?
Yeah,
But
thank you.
just generally, are you getting people?
Yeah, thanks for raising that issue. And I will make sure we put a piece about that in the newsletter. Our intention, and certainly council's request, was for us to have that program in place October of last year. We were not able to meet that goal. So we finally got it put together just recently. In a perfect world, what someone would do is apply for a credit by the April 30th deadline. We'd have 30 days to review it, and then we would have that determination made before we sent the stormwater fee information to the county. Each year on June 1st, our finance office has to submit that to the county, and then that stormwater utility fee is included in the county property tax bills, which get sent to property owners. So in a perfect world, we'd have that negotiation completed, credits would be determined, we would have people identified, and then the fee that we would send to the county for inclusion on the bill would reflect that credit. Unfortunately for this year, because we weren't able to get it in place in time, that approved credits we will end up reimbursing or rebating people. They will pay their stormwater fee based on the current charges, and if they are eligible for credit, we will then credit back through a direct payment by check from the finance office once they've paid their property tax bill. So not as clean as we would like it, but next year out, after the fiscal year 23, when we get to fiscal year 24, we should have it all in place so that people can apply for that credit. And anyone who received a credit that's good for 3 years, it'll automatically be incorporated into their reduced bill, and so they won't have to follow up on it.
So are you getting people contacting you?
I have only had one
okay.
correspondence yet from someone who was interested. They submitted the application, but no details or background information. So one of the things you will find in the credit application is it does require quite a bit of information to be submitted with it, drawings, documents from when the measure was under construction, information about the size, information about the impervious area that it treats, and details about how it was constructed. In the guidance document we've defined each of those measures and what is required to be considered for full credit. If people don't quite meet the standard for full credit, we'll consider partial credit. But there's guidelines that we follow, all based on Maryland State Manual for Stormwater Treatment. So we're not creating something new here. This is just the way those facilities and devices are intended to be built to serve the purpose that they're supposed to serve.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kovar?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Braithwaite, for the presentation. I appreciate all the details and the information. I didn't see the document, and I'm not sure when it was sent out, the one that you're referring to.
The
But
guidance document and
yeah.
cover sheet? Or the one I spoke to tonight?
the most recent one that was.
Oh,
Excuse me,
Oh.
it's posted on the website with the agenda item.
Okay.
I didn't email it out, so it's available there.
Okay, well, I may have missed that or not been aware of it, but for the late posts, I think we really need to be somehow alerted to them so that we can see them in advance. On the tax credit, we've talked a little bit about this. One of the questions I have is that I think I've mentioned it in several of the pieces of information I've sent out, and I'm still not sure how many people are aware of it, and some may see the April 30th deadline, and I know you've said that doesn't apply, but what will the deadline be? I mean, since it doesn't matter, so to speak,
Right.
if they get it in on time, is there an effective deadline of some
no,
type?
we haven't established a deadline for the FY23 cycle. It'll just be before the FY24 cycle, so anytime through the fiscal year, which
Okay.
runs July 1st through
So they're
June, if
gonna
someone wanted to
pay
apply for
the
credit.
amount that they're required to pay, and then at any point up until the next round,
Mm-hmm.
they can seek a credit based on what's in effect for this current year for them,
Yeah.
right? And potentially the future years if they qualify for.
Yes, yeah,
for
and
three.
and you know, the intention is that you have the project in place, so it's not
Right.
something you're planning to build, but
Right.
something that's actually already built, already in the ground, already
And you have
doing
to
what
show
it's
those,
supposed
you
to
have
do.
to show those details. So on the maps you mentioned also, and of course you and I have talked about this quite a bit, there was at least one area in the city where this whole block was off.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we haven't gotten the new map yet, right? So.
We have,
Oh,
yeah,
good.
we have, the county GIS office has sent us the map. We
And
haven't
do we
got
know
it.
if that issue has been,
Yeah, I've looked through each of the ones where we sent property surveys directly to the county and looked at each of those properties, and they've been corrected, as well
but I
as the
guess
adjacent
my
properties.
point would be, there were some people in that block who knew that it was a block-wide issue, and I'm not sure they would have taken it upon themselves to send in their plat if they knew that the whole block was off and was being worked on. So do we
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
think it
you-
was addressed at that global level?
Yes, you can't change one property line without affecting the other, and then it cascades down to the adjacent properties. So, you know, if they had a property survey from one lot on that block, it affected every lot on that
Like a
block.
domino?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
will that be posted soon, or?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Hope
Um,
to have it posted this week.
Okay.
It's just a matter of getting it up there.
Two other questions. The amount, I think it's $200,000 that we included in this year's budget for the contract.
150.
150, sorry, not 200, yeah. Can you say anything about where that stands? This is for an outside contractor to help us analyze the citywide issues.
Right, that was an item that the council added to the budget during budget deliberations last year. We have had quite a few conversations with a number of different engineering firms and organizations to try to both find out what other jurisdictions are doing in regard to evaluating impacts of stormwater on private property and how to manage that. It is still fairly new in the realm of stormwater management. By far, most jurisdictions are dealing with what we do, the impact on the public right-of-way and trying to keep stormwater in the right-of-way and off private property. We are hoping to get a proposal from a firm that has done quite a bit of work with local area municipalities. And so once we get that, we'll take a look at it, see if we think it meets our need. They're currently under contract with some local jurisdictions, including Hyattsville. And so we would be able to ride on that contract to complete that work. So we're hoping that we're soon going to be able to put a proposal, a project in front of you to take a look at. We have also been working with a couple of our sister jurisdictions on a application to the National Fish and Wildlife Federation for a similar development of a white paper on stormwater management and private property and kind of the best way to do it, how to fund it, what are the sort of hurdles. So we hope to hear soon whether or not that grant application was accepted, and then if so, we'll be moving forward on that too. So we hope to have more information on that in the coming month.
Thanks. One last question. We had talked about the, this problematic inlet or drain on Maple Avenue, and I believe you said that the crew was going to work on cleaning it out to see if that would address the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't, and if it turns out that there's something structurally wrong with it, meaning that maybe it's too small to accommodate heavier rain, like we had just the other day, is that something that could be addressed in this next phase of work that you
Well,
described?
we have a full list of projects that we're proposing for FY23. Sometimes what happens, which is definitely what happened in 20 and 21, particularly in the fall of 2020 with the big storm, we had a whole plan of projects that we were planning to do, but as a result of the impacts of those storms, we shifted gears and developed an entirely new set of projects that were far higher priority. So we will take a look at each situation that comes up on a as needed basis, and if we determine that the hazard or the risk is greater than the projects that we currently have in the queue, we'll bump projects and move another one in. I'm hopeful that inlet on Maple Avenue, it appears to just be a clogged pipe. So our video pipe inspection and cleaning should be able to open that pipe up and
Okay,
take
well,
care of the
the
issue.
only thing I'll say is if it isn't, and I understand there are other priorities too, but if it's something that was installed that doesn't work, that's different to me than a new thing that hasn't been done yet that may not be a priority, so.
Sure.
I
Well,
would
in the
urge it.
repair and maintenance, we're dealing with existing infrastructure. So the only new project that we're planning for next year is the Tacoma Branch Stream restoration. So everything else is dealing with failures and repairs on existing systems.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted. Our annual video pipe inspection and cleaning is, as I mentioned to Councilmember Kovar, coming up. So we've asked them to start at this one location before they start their sub-basin work. So we hope to have an answer on that for you soon.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, I was thinking about voting no on this. I'm gonna vote for it, but I really want us to clean up these uncertainties, and I feel like it's not locked down.
What
With the
uncertainty?
credit, with the maps, with the contract, with the inlet. I'm gonna vote in favor of this, but I think that there's a lot floating around here that we need to lock down a little faster.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. We feel like our program plan for FY23 is very locked down, very clear.
Great. Thank you, Director Braithwaite. Thank you very much for pulling this together quickly for us to propose. I am very supportive of the work that you're doing in FY23, and especially on the Cockrell area, since I think Councilwoman Kostick and I know the impact over there, and I'm glad to hear that we're moving forward. I know it's been a struggle to figure out how to get a proposal out on looking at private property, talking to my colleagues, mayors in other cities. This is groundbreaking work. People aren't looking at it as much at the municipal level, how to manage stormwater on private property. So I'm glad to see that is moving forward as well. So thank you for all your work on this and keeping us moving forward on our stormwater management in the city. All right, I will ask now if someone would like to move the first reading ordinance adopting our FY 2023 stormwater management budget. Councilmember Siemens moves, Councilman DeBala second. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those, Councilmember Kovar, sorry. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. All right, now we have our first reading ordinance adopting the FY 2023 budget. Does the city manager have any comments or anything before I ask for this to be moved? Thank you. Would someone like to move our ordinance adopting the FY 2023 budget? Anybody? Councilwoman DeBala, do I have a second? Councilwoman Costick, any questions or comments? Councilmember Smith?
I would just say that I'm not supporting this budget. I think that as a council, we have one priority that's in our Constitution, also known as the Charter, to balance a budget. I don't think that this lives up to that responsibility. I hope that we take Mr. Fox's recommendation and form a budget committee for the next fiscal year so that council can look at the budget and look at how to make it sustainable. Because right now, we are going to be out of business.
Thank you. Any other comments this evening on the budget? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the first reading ordinance adopting FY 2023 budget, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Any abstaining? It's 2 opposed, 5 for. The next item is single
Before
reading.
you go on to the next item, can I, because I was about to make a comment when you called for the vote. I'm sorry, I didn't move my hand fast enough. I just wanted to say that I support the notion of having a council subgroup moving forward to look at some of the ideas that were raised today and some other ideas that have been discussed. So thank you for bringing that up.
Right. Next, we have a single reading ordinance approving the purchase of a vehicle for the police special assignment team. Thank you to the staff for updating the information on the cover sheet as I requested last week. Would someone like to move the single reading ordinance? Councilmember Siemens, do I have a second? Councilwoman Searcy, any comments or questions? Seeing none, this is single reading ordinance. I will ask the clerk to call a roll call vote.
Councilmember Kovar.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala.
Yes.
Councilmember Costick.
Yes.
Councilmember Siemens.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Searcy.
Aye.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes. All right, that is our last voting item this evening. We are adjourned until next week. So don't forget, lots of exciting activities happening in the city this weekend. Hope to see people around. And I just want to say thank you to the city staff for all the work pulling together the budget. I know particularly the last week after reconciliation is really crunch time. Please give our thanks to our Director of Finance, Susan Chung, for all her work, and the city manager and the directors, the deputy city managers work on this. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.